Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just for some clarification, the current mechanism of reporting that the Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation has and gives to the House will continue to happen under the new makeup of the board and the corporation. So we'll continue to be transparent, and I think it shows that we're moving forward with changes to gaming within the province, and I think the changes we'll see in this new act best fits where we're at in the environment of gaming here in Nova Scotia. So I move second reading of Bill 81.
Thank you. The question is for second reading of Bill number 81, the Gaming Control Act. Is the House ready for the question? All in favour say aye. Those opposed nay. The motion is carried.
Bill number 81, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 4 of the Acts of 1994-95, the Gaming Control Act.
Order that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, could you please call Bill 82, an act to incorporate Nova Scotia Association of Health Organizations?
Call Bill number 82, the Act to incorporate Nova Scotia Association of Health Organizations. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that Bill 82, is it 82? I move that Bill 82, an act to incorporate Nova Scotia Association of Health Organizations, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the Nova Scotia Health Association represents health and community services organizations spanning the entire healthcare system in our province. This association is a non-government, non-profit, membership-driven group that represents more than 130 organizations in our province. The organizations that the association represent include the 9 district health authorities and the IWK Health Centre, more than 100 continuing care organizations, nursing homes, and government-funded home care organizations. Madam Speaker, the present act was last amended in 1974. The time for change is long overdue. Active for more than 50 years, the association has evolved over the last few decades in the services they offer and the members they serve. The proposed amendments will reflect the expansion of the association's mandate to provide services to its members not included in the current act. This includes labor relations, salary administration, and clinical engineering services. It will also permit the expansion of contracted services to non-members and allow for the association to also be known as the Health Association of Nova Scotia. These proposed amendments are important because they will better reflect the services and current practices of the association. Madam Speaker, this is an association that has strong ties with provincial and national counterparts in the Canadian Healthcare Association, and together they work to provide a voice to those they serve. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognize the Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and just rise to my place to say a few words on Bill number 82, an act to incorporate the Nova Scotia Association of Health Organizations. Madam Speaker, the Health Association of Nova Scotia offers a wide variety of programs, services, and benefits to some 131 organizations across the province who are all equally committed to health and well-being of Nova Scotians. Madam Speaker, the bill is a housekeeping bill. These amendments reflect some change announced by the former Health Association of Nova Scotia in March of 2010, a name change that was made to reflect a broader definition of health beyond the bricks and mortar of facilities and legislative organizational structures, if you will. Current and potential memberships include organizations that focus on the social determinants of health, which are as important to the health and well-being of individuals as the treatment of illness and care provided in institutions other than hospitals. The bill also legitimizes, if you will, services the Health Association of Nova Scotia have been ably providing to its members for many years. Mr. Speaker, our caucus has no problem with the bill. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't acknowledge on behalf of the Liberal caucus the outstanding efforts put forward by the Health Association to its membership. As we can all appreciate, it's very easy for organizations to reinvent the wheel when it comes to creating programs or services or developing policies. The benefit of this membership with the Health Association is that organizations and facilities can focus on those things they do best, providing exceptional care and leaving the development of programs and services or even the development of policies or statements from a position of strength as a unified group in the hands of the Health Association of Nova Scotia. It is this role where the Health Association of Nova Scotia truly shines. With these few words, I take my seat, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. If I'm to recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness, it will be to close debate.
Very much, Madam Speaker, and I rise to close debate on Bill 82.
Question is for second reading of Bill number 82, the Act to incorporate Nova Scotia's Association of Health Organizations. Is the House ready for the question? All in favour say aye. Those opposed nay. The motion is carried.
Bill number 82, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 111 of the Acts of 1960, an Act to incorporate Nova Scotia Association of Health Organizations.
Order that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, after this rigorous debate, that ends the government's business for today. I'll hand it over now to the Deputy House Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Recognize the Deputy House Leader for the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And following daily routine tomorrow, the PC opposition business will be as follows. Bill 27, the Cyberbullying Act, and Bill number 72, the Capital Projects Review Act, and the hours, 2 to 6 for tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The motion is that we do now rise to meet again tomorrow, May the 9th, between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. We'll now proceed with late debate as put forward under Rule number 5.5, submitted by the Honourable Member for Clayton Park, and it reads, therefore, be it resolved that the NDP government's decision to not exempt Halifax Regional Municipality from full pension solvency forces the municipality into an unnecessary expensive pension arrangement and is detrimental to HRM pensioners and taxpayers. Recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Clayton Park.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I know 10 minutes will go very quickly in late debate on this subject, so I appreciate having the opportunity to bring it before the House and in order to talk about it for both the benefit of all HRM taxpayers and property taxpayers, and also a very big benefit from a change that we're recommending to the pension. It would make a huge difference to the pension plan members. And I've just actually gotten off the phone speaking to the plan I guess the head of the HRM pension plan, the agency that looks after that, and was questioning some of the numbers that appeared in the article in today's paper, because my understanding was that if there is not a full exemption from the solvency measure that is used for businesses, if HRM doesn't get that full exemption, then they will be required to dramatically increase their contributions toward the plan. And for the benefit of members and for the benefit of people who may be listening at home, this is not setting a lower standard, I don't believe. It's not choosing something that in some way is postponing a day of reckoning for the pension. What it really is that in legitimate pension management, there are two different ways to value a pension plan. One of them suggests that the business could go bankrupt at any time, could cease to exist, could be wound up, just as we're seeing now with the new page plan. That if your pension plan's winding up, you need to have enough money in that plan to cover your long-term obligations to the current pensioners and to the people who've worked for you for whatever length of time. So that is a standard that's higher because there's a risk that you might cease operation and have an obligation to a lot of people that have paid into the plan. The second legitimate valuation is exactly what we do with provincial plan members, people who are covered under the provincial superannuation plan. We assume there that there will always be a government of Nova Scotia, and that what we need to plan for are the ongoing obligations, not a sudden ceasing of operations that mean we have to cover everybody, the workers and the current employees that have retired. So what we're looking at is a second valuation which is equally legitimate, and that is a valuation that is called the going concern basis. And we assume that they will never cease to exist, that where Halifax and Dartmouth cease to exist, we created HRM. There's still an entity that carries on and carries the ongoing obligation. Now, Halifax is not given that exemption, whereas many other provinces have exempted their municipalities. Manitoba is one, and Alberta and Ontario have been studying it and offering it. There's a whole list of provinces, and Madam Speaker, I'm looking for that as we speak. But I want to make it clear that this would not be cutting edge. It would not be risky. It's not a move that's going to be in any way imprudent. It is well accepted in other provinces as a fact of life that their municipalities will always continue to exist and will be able to meet their obligations. So the fact is, why are we holding our municipalities with defined benefit plans to a higher standard than ourselves in terms of the funding, to what is really an unrealistic standard? And we're asking them to fund and find the money, and we know where governments find money. They find it from the taxpayers and from the pockets of their employees as well for a pension plan. But we're asking them to be funded to a level that they're never going to need. So basically millions of dollars coming out of the city coffers and out of the pockets of their employees to go into a plan that will be funded to a level that they are never going to be called upon to draw. So it's millions of dollars really that could be put to good use in public services and in other ways. And just to confirm the amount of money, Madam Chair, what I was told just now was that the employees currently put in approximately, it's a little over 10% of their pay towards their pension plan. If they are not given, if the whole plan is not given an exemption, they will then have to increase to 15% of their pay. Now, that's a lot of money out of the pockets and out of the bottom line, the take-home pay of HRM employees at all levels. And what was pointed out, too, is not everybody's at a high pay level. So some people who might only be earning $20,000 or $25,000 a year, that's a lot of money out of the money they need to live. So it has a huge impact on every employee of HRM, as you can imagine, going from a 10 to 15% contribution. Now, a good thing about HRM, Madam Speaker, is it's jointly sponsored. And what the Liberals have proposed, and in our press release yesterday morning, we said it should be offered to jointly sponsored plans that are municipal. Defined benefit, jointly sponsored municipal plans should be exempted from this wind-up solvency measure. And the reason for that is jointly sponsored is a higher standard of governance. It means the employees and pensioners are at the table with the employer, and they each bear 50% of the benefits or the extra contributions. So HRM is already at that standard. They have a jointly sponsored plan. It is well managed, and we believe that is a stronger reason to support their claim that they should be given the same benefit of being valued on a going concern basis, the same benefit that HRM get, or that the province of Nova Scotia gets, and the same benefit that's recently been given to Dalhousie University. So it almost seems that the government has passed over HRM or jumped over the municipal issue and gone and allowed Dalhousie University and other defined benefit plans at universities to have this same new standard, the standard of a going concern basis. So we accepted that Dalhousie is not going to go out of business. I think by the same standard, it's even more obvious that the city of HRM, the region of HRM, is not, and also other municipalities that may meet the requirement of being jointly sponsored and being stable, then they also should be allowed the same benefit. Because I realize you don't generally make a rule for one municipality over another, but HRM's is definitely the largest, over 9,000 plan members if you include the retirees and the working members. So it has a tremendous impact on the economy of Nova Scotia and HRM. As I said, if we, with a stroke of a pen, through legislation, the government can change this rule and say, we're no longer saying you need to be funded as a corporation, as a company would, where there's a risk, even with the best of companies, that they disappear. Look at Nortel, Madam Speaker. Remember Nortel, whose stock traded at over $100 a share, and suddenly it's gone, and the pensioners have come to see us. Those are federal pensions, by the way, but those companies, even the strongest and mightiest, can disappear. But it's different with a municipality or with the provincial government, and I feel we have to use a different standard. So we're saying we don't need to fund. We should change the rule that the province has the control to do. The NDP government could do that. They could change the valuation method we're going to use for the municipalities that are jointly sponsored plans. And by doing that, it's a win-win-win. I don't believe we're exposing any more risk to Nova Scotians. I don't believe that it is imprudent in any way when you look at the strong management of the plan in HRM. At the same time, you'll be saving the taxpayers of our municipality, because there's no question that if HRM has to come up with another $30 million, and we estimate, a conservative estimate is that their share of the plan difference is $15 million a year. So collectively, it's $30 million a year between the employees and the city. If they have to come up with that money, it will come back. It will rest on the property taxpayers. And we've already heard in other ways why it's very difficult for taxpayers today in HRM and in our province. There's a lot of pressures. And this is one method where you could help the affordability, help the employees, and set a standard that is reasonable and prudent all the way around. Making this change in Nova Scotia to allow HRM and the other municipalities that qualify to be exempted from the wind-up measure of solvency, which we use for corporations, just makes sense, and it's a win-win-win. And it does not cost the provincial government a penny. We're not doing anything that impacts the bottom line of Nova Scotia, and we're making a big difference to the lives of particularly the employees of HRM, who would be asked for so much more in their own contributions if this is not granted, but also to the taxpayers, who will also have to bear the brunt of the employer's portion of the increase that's not necessary. So, Madam Speaker, with that, I look forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the honourable member for Inverness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think there's two words that come to my mind when I think about pensions. One is security, and the other is prudence. And when people, I believe what people are really looking for in a pension is security. And in order for people to have security of income, there has to be prudent activity. You know, I think about, we have some concerns about this point we're debating today, because while I believe that some flexibility in solvency can be a good thing, we also have to remember that we can't be creating imaginary pension plans. And by that I mean what you put into the plan and how it's managed does have a direct impact on what comes out at the other end. And we can't get away from that. Everybody who invests, whether it's in a pension fund or whether it's in their own personal RSP account, goes to the same market to invest. And if we look at, when I talk about prudence, there's even been a municipality, the town of Canso has had financial difficulties. And so anybody working for that municipal unit, well, they don't have a defined benefit plan, but if they did, I guess my point is that there can be situations where governments, be they municipal, and I also think of a country across the ocean in Greece, where a number of events have led that country to be really teetering. You even hear stories about people going back to the land, trying to buy up land so they can live off the land, which is really amazing this day and age for a country that has, you know, that had a relatively strong amount of wealth when you compare it to other countries in the world. And sadly, they're in a very severe state of decline right now, and the uncertainty in that country is reverberating throughout the world, as we see with the stock market. And you know, I think, Madam Speaker, even closer to home, the recent protests over tuition increases in the province of Quebec, the riots that we see on the streets there, the coverage of that reminds me a lot of the riots that we were seeing in Greece. So we must be responsible, especially in this legislature, when we're making rules, because a lot of times people will skip the rules if they can, but still want to get what they want. We cannot have imaginary pension plans, and solvency of a pension plan needs to be addressed. And I know there's two real ways. I know that you've mentioned that. However, like when I think about, I know I heard presentations of the Law Amendments Committee from Dalhousie University, and they said, well, we're never going to go out of business, and if we did, we could sell the assets of the university to make up for the pension shortfalls. The problem I have with that, Madam Speaker, is what would we say to all those people over the last, and I didn't go to Dalhousie, I don't know how many years they've been in operation, but I'm going to say the past 100 years, since 1812. So what would we say to all the Nova Scotians who donated, bequeathed estates, and made donations to that university for the hope and the education of future Nova Scotians, if we just took those assets and eliminated them to pay for the shortfall in a pension plan? To me, Madam Speaker, that would not be responsible, and I think it would bother those people that made those donations. So, and if we want to have people making donations in the future for things like education, and we see it all the time with capital campaigns, then we need to make sure that people making those donations feel like they're actually going to be, their money is going to be put towards future education of Nova Scotians. So, Madam Speaker, I guess what I would say is, if people don't want to have or take the responsibility that comes with having a defined benefit pension plan, there are other alternatives. The beauty of a defined benefit plan is supposedly you don't have to worry about it, because if it's prudently managed and if all goes well, you get what you're promised in the end. But with that comes the responsibility of making sure the plan is solvent. And as I mentioned, I think some flexibility is good for solvency. If there's a major decline in the markets, you don't have to make it up right away. I think that makes sense, and it can work. But I'll speak a little bit about that in a minute when I speak about New Page, because it certainly didn't work there, although I wouldn't be critical of the decision to allow them to have more flexibility with their solvency. It did not work in that case. If people don't want the responsibility that goes along with a defined benefit plan, then what I would say to them is, why not choose a defined contribution plan? Very simple. The employee puts an amount in, the organization employing that person puts an amount in. However it grows through investment, whatever it comes out to be at the end of the day becomes what that person has. And there's strengths and weaknesses to that, Madam Speaker. At least you know what you have, and it can't be taken away from you. But I know that a lot of people prefer not to have to think about, where is that amount going to grow to. But in reality, Madam Speaker, the same thing is happening inside a defined benefit pension plan, and the same responsibility needs to be taken. So, Madam Speaker, how much time do I have left just to...
You have this side of 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. So I just wanted to make that point. And I think, sadly, we're starting to see defined benefit plans go the way of the dinosaur. They're disappearing. Because, and I threw that word in just for the member from Guysborough, because I know that would resonate with him. But they are going the way of the dinosaur because organizations are finding they cannot afford to support the indexing that's involved, and really the guarantee that people are going to have the benefits they're promised at the end of the day, because they're dealing with the realities of the investment climate. And Madam Speaker, if we start with governments giving them flexibility, and we've seen here with the provincial government plan, over $500 million being placed into it, which was borrowed and ultimately comes from the taxpayers. We can't be asking taxpayers to do that, in my mind, because they can't afford that, because they're already trying to do it for themselves. Many Nova Scotians, we know, don't belong to a pension plan. And if they're going to, they're paying taxes like everybody else. If we have to increase taxes to pay for pension plan top-ups in government, I don't believe that's fair
to the Nova Scotians who are out there working every day, trying to put some money aside for themselves. And if they were paying less tax, they'd have more ability to put money aside for themselves. So we have to think about that as well. We have to think about their security, Madam Speaker. And I know I have to finish up here, but I think I will just talk a little bit about New Page. The solvency relief didn't really work for them because unfortunately the company went bankrupt. So instead of current employees in the company putting more money in more quickly to top up the plan, it was delayed. And that, of course, we had hoped at the time would have helped the company survive, but it didn't. So this is the reality that can sometimes happen. And we have to be aware of that. The last point I would like to make, I know that the Minister responsible for pensions is going to be coming forth with some legislation, and I hope that it takes into account what I tried to put forth last December by way of an amendment to the Pension Benefits Act, because I believe, and to this day I believe that's what the pensioners at New Page, who all come, there's different groups and they come with different sets of interests, but I think that amendment balanced those interests. And I hope that the bill that comes forward is representative of all of those interests, and we will wait to see it. And one final thought, Madam Speaker, there was another bill I put forward during this sitting, and that was to give better information to defined benefit pension plan members each year, not a full actuarial review of the pension plan, but an overview of what happened the past year and how it's affecting the plan. Because with better information, we relieve the frustration that some of those defined benefit pension plan members, like those in HRM, and like in our provincial government, we relieve the frustration they feel when they don't know what's going on inside their plan. And as we saw with the New Page workers, a great deal of frustration there when they didn't know what was going on with their plan. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour and Advanced Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm pleased to be able to stand in the chamber and talk about this very relevant topic. And it's interesting because I now meet people actually on the sidewalk and at receptions and social events who want to talk about pensions. It's a very, very relevant and critical issue for many of us. It's unfortunate, though, that the resolution that we are currently debating is one that is not factual. It's inaccurate because the premise is suggesting that we have made a decision about municipal pensions, and that is not the case. So I just want to remind members that that last fall we passed the Pension Benefits Act, and I clearly stated at that time that the Department of Labour and Advanced Education would be continuing with consultations about the regulations, and we are in that process. And I'm pleased to say that we are getting to the final stages of the consultation, and that we expect to have the regulations, will proclaim the act and bring in the regulations probably by the end of summer, early fall. And so there has been no decision made about the regulations as it impacts on municipalities, and in particular Halifax Regional Municipality, which is the basis of the resolution today. And I do want to set a little bit of context here. This is not a new issue, and I'm sure members in the chamber who formerly served as municipal councillors, especially those within Halifax Regional Municipality, know that this is an ongoing issue, and they, I'm sure, have been following the issue over the years. Certainly, our department has had regular in continuing discussions with the plan administrator for HRM. We certainly have received a number of communications from members of that plan. We fully appreciate and understand their position. But I just want to mention as well that, you know, we certainly have a responsibility as the regulator for private pension plans and also plans that come out of the universities and affect municipalities. We have a responsibility to do a very thorough consultation with those who will be impacted by the regulations. And as I said, that consultation is ongoing. Certainly, we have made accommodations as a government for the HRM pension plan over the years. I just want to mention that, you know, at the same time that there's a reason for these valuation tests, and that is, as I have been reminded many times by the chair of the pension panel, Bill Black, that when an organization, a level of government, a business, when they promise to certain benefits for the beneficiaries of their pension plan, they have the ultimate responsibility to make sure they have the assets to cover those promises. And I'm somewhat reassured by the previous speaker, the member from Inverness, for his understanding of the caution necessary when you're the regulator to move forward with any amendments or changes. We're also, I want to say, consulting with the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities, and they are very aware that their members are in different stages in terms of having defined benefits, defined contributions, and they know that there is currently relief that impacts on municipalities, and they have asked us for a decision before 2016. I want to repeat that, before 2016, because the solvency relief will not run out until that time. So that has enabled us to take a more thorough, use a more thorough process in dealing with the regulations, proposed regulations as they impact on municipalities, as different from the universities. So the timeline is quite different. The pressures are different. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that 3 years ago, HRM asked for more time for its pension plans to recover from the ravages of the economic downturn. And they wanted 3 years without solvency payments, followed by 7 years of make-up payments. And we granted that request. However, time, as we all know, did not fix that funding crunch. And the financial recovery has not been as quick, Madam Speaker, as some had hoped, as all of us had hoped. And we also acknowledge that the one-size-fits-all approach that previous governments took to pension reform was ineffective. So since taking office in 2009, our government has had to bring forward a number of Band-Aid regulations to address shortcomings of the old legislation. And I have to say, Madam Speaker, one of the reasons we have taken our time on this is because there has been considerable transformation, review, and change happening in the jurisdictions around us, particularly in Ontario. And because many Nova Scotians also have combined plans, some of them originate in Ontario. What happens in Ontario impacts on many retirees here in our province. So it's very, very important that we stay in sync with what's happening across Canada and also in other jurisdictions outside of Canada. So we're taking our time, we're understanding the impacts, we're trying to do the best practices, and certainly Nova Scotians will benefit from that. As I mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, we passed a brand new Pension Benefits Act last fall, and it makes it easier for employers to offer pension plans, and it addresses the concerns, and it will through that organizations such as HRM and Dalhousie have raised with us in terms of the larger issues. The details will be known as soon as the regulations come into effect. And I said the timeline now is probably at the latest, late summer, early fall. We recognize that many municipalities with defined pension plans are having difficulty meeting their legal solvency requirements while still balancing their books in terms of the operations of the programs and services that municipalities provide. But I want to go back to the main point. These solvency requirements exist to protect employees and retirees, and we cannot get away as a regulator from that basic premise. Now, we agree. HRM Halifax has been going strong since 1749, and we don't see any change in that viability anytime soon. But we also have to be mindful that HRM, like other municipalities, like other businesses and organizations, have an aging workforce. And certainly that's going to have great impacts on their pension as well. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to finish by saying, just reaffirming that pension plans have been seriously affected by the global economic downturn and the continuing low interest rates. We recognize that municipalities with defined pension plans are having difficulty meeting those requirements. We have accommodated and given them solvency relief until 2016. And we've been working very closely with municipalities and the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities and other public organizations to fully understand their pressures, but also to encourage them to take responsibility for perhaps some reform and changes that they need to do themselves in order to be able to cover the benefits that they have promised their employees and their retirees. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The time allotted for late debate has elapsed. I thank all members for a good debate this afternoon, and the House now stands adjourned until tomorrow at 2 p.m.